Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hinei ma tov u'manayim, how good it is that we are here together. We sing. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Let's do it again. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Repeat after me. How good it is. How sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is. How sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is so nice to see all of your faces, at least the top half of all of your faces. And we're glad that you're here with us to celebrate Shabbat. If you are here in person, welcome to our sanctuary. A couple of housekeeping things before we start. Well, first of all, hi, I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and this is Cantor Liz Sachs. We appreciate you keeping your masks on over your mouth and nose while you're in the sanctuary with us. If you need the restroom and you've never been here before, it is straight out those doors and to the right. And for those of you that are joining us from afar online, we are so glad that you are here as well. Everybody turn around, look at that camera right in the middle, wave hello, say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're so glad that everyone is with us. And so with that, on this cold Shabbat evening, we bring a little light and a little warmth into our sanctuary, into our homes, into the world as we prepare to light our Shabbat candles.
As a special surprise, we're going to ask Mark and Jamie Eidelberg to come help us light our Shabbat candles, our past president. And Jamie, come.
Surprise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you.
And with that, we prepare ourselves to welcome in Shabbat. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built this synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured. A beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. And so with those joyous hearts that are filled with the beauty of whatever sanctuary you are in, we prepare to welcome in Shabbat with the words of Lecha Dodi, with the enthusiasm that we welcome in a friend or a loved one into our home.
As we sing this prayer, when we reach the very last verse, we will rise as we are able and turn to face our entrance, to symbolically welcome not only with our hearts and with our minds, but with our bodies as well, the presence that we would like to settle on top of us for this Shabbat to help us feel peaceful and warm and safe and connected to our community.
Ateret bala gam besimcha uvtzola toch emuneh am segula
for the Baruch Hu. We pray responsively. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars.
Together, creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Havta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Havta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
Love abundant, love unstinting. Our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift. Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live. For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance.
Together, loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach. Preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah. May learning your Torah light up our eyes. May our hearts embrace your mitzvot. Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed of our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Havta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema, Shema, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Shema, Shema, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Baruch, Baruch, Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Shema, Shema, Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We chant Vayak'hel together. Vayak'hel et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru V'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liod lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
We are slaves because freedom means more than broken chains. Where there is poverty and hunger and homelessness, there is no freedom. Where there is prejudice and bigotry and discrimination, there is no freedom. Where there is violence and torture and war, there is no freedom. And where each of us is less than he or she might be, we are not free, not yet.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. Let's do it again. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. And the river is wide,
The river is wide,
and the river is deep,
and the river is deep,
and the river is standing between you and me, and freedom, but we shall overcome one day. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. And the river is fear,
and the river is fear,
and the river is hate,
and the river is hate,
and the river is standing between us and the gates of freedom, freedom, and we shall overcome one day. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. And the river divides, and the river forgives, and the river's a wall, and the river's a bridge to freedom, freedom, but we shall overcome one day. Yes, we shall overcome one day.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu va'al kol amo Yisrael va'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Hashkivenu Adonai.
from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamideinu l'shamreinu l'chaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamideinu l'shamreinu l'chaim.
Prayer is at the heart not only of great religion, but of significant living. Without prayer, we cannot scale the heights of compassion or reach the peaks of love of our neighbor, of which we are called and capable.
Together, prayer is a step on which we rise from the self we are to the self we wish to be.
Prayer affirms the hope no reality can crush, the goal that can never acknowledge defeat. Prayer is not an escape from duty, it is no substitute for the deed.
Together, prayer seeks the power to do wisely, to act generously, to live helpfully. It helps to reinforce the act rather than to replace it.
Prayer is the search for silence in the midst of life.
Our prayers are answered, not when we are given what we ask, but when we are challenged to be what we can be. We rise as we are able for tefillah. God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Adonai, Svattai Tivta, Ufiyagi, Leilatecha. Adonai, Svattai Tivta, Ufiyagi, Leilatecha. God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, Bezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'yova, Melech Ozer, Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umorid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishanei Afar, Michamocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimin, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat al Chayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah Kadosh, V'shimcha Kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom Yahalelu Chaseda, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We take a moment now for silent prayer. You may stand or sit, whatever feels comfortable.
Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my days be as the ones before, lest routine set my way. Lamdeni Eloah, Pareh V'shir Hallel. We rise as we are able now for Seder Kriyat HaTorah, for our Torah service. Hallelu, 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 Holan Shabbat, Hallelujah, hallelu, hallelujah, Holan Shabbat, Hallelujah, hallelu, hallelujah, hallelu, 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 Kol Shabbat, Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kol Shabbat, Hallelujah, hallelujah.
And so it is our great pleasure to call for our Torah reading today. We're at Parashat Vayak'hel, and we're going to call up Lisa Velick, who is going to read Torah for us this evening.
We are going to bless together as soon as we make sure that our Torah is in the right spot. Well done. There we go. That was fun. So we are going to bless Torah together. Here we go. Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach, Baruch Adonai hambarach leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Veshemen lamaor uvsamim. Veshemen hamishcha veliktoret hasamim. Ve'avnei shoham ve'avnei miluim la'ephod ve'lachoshem ve'chol hacham lev lahem Yavo ve'ya'asu et kol asher tziva Adonai et hamishkan et ocholo ve'et michusehu et kerasav ve'et kerashav et berichav et amudav ve'et adanav.
Beautiful. Yasher kochech. So we are in the continuing project of building our Mishkan, our tabernacle. And so what Lisa has just chanted for us so beautifully, this is what the Eternal has commanded. Take from among you gifts to the Eternal. Everyone whose heart is so moved shall bring them. Gifts for the Eternal, gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, and goat's hair, tanned ram skins, dolphin skins and acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for anointing oil and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli and other stones for setting, for the ephod and the breastpiece. And let all among you who are skilled come and make all that the Eternal has commanded: the tabernacle, its tent and its covering, its clasps and its planks, its bars, its posts, and its sockets. And together we chant our closing bracha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
Yasher Koach. Thank you for that beautiful reading. And as always, we take a second when the Torah is still out, before we have put it back into its safe ark, to say a prayer for healing for those that are in need in our community, in our lives, in our families, in our world. There is a lot of healing to pray for tonight. And so as always, in between the verses, we'll read a list of names, those that we know of in our community that are in need of that prayer, and we invite you to share names as well. Today we are praying for Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, Jean Silber, Scott Englander, Stacy Hoffman, Phyllis Schulman, James Tepper, Alan Davidson, Donald Gross, Douglas Hamilton, Ira Levine, Leslie Rohde, Kara Smoley, Richard Seedroff, David Freed, Rick Gratch, Gavriel Baruch Ben Risha Bela, Betty Heller, Alex Busnovetsky, Lori Goldman, Laura Culver, Carol Weiner, Jared Siegel, Arnold Brodsky, Yana Vishnitsky, Peggy Lehman, Rebecca Zuckerman, Gary Potashnik, Steve Volin, Murray Unell, Donna Lenoble, Sheila Rosenberg, Murray Rosenberg, Nancy Sager, Nancy Schwader, and Miriam Brodsky. If there are other names, those that you are praying for on this Shabbat, I invite you to say them out loud. If you're at home, type them in, say them out loud, hold them in your heart. We pray for them and for all those in our world who could use this prayer together. Baruch atah Adonai makor harefuah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the source of all healing.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
And with all of those people in our minds and hearts, we prepare to return the Torah to the ark. I'm going to call up an assistant. Neil, can you come help me?
Come on.
Come here. As he comes up here, I'm going to ask all of you to please rise as you are able as we lift and dress the Torah. You may be seated. Nailed it, first time. Boom. He comes by it naturally, huh? So, we're going to take a moment to talk about what we just read and this week's Torah portion. And we're in Parashat Vayak'hel. You know, it's interesting. There's like moments of drama. Recently, last week was the whole thing with the golden calf, that whole thing with the golden calf. And that was a dramatic moment in the Torah that certainly is a part of the ups and downs of this part of our reading, where we get laws and instructions and laws and instructions, and then something happens, and usually somebody dies, and then we get more laws and instructions and laws and instructions, and it just goes on and on like that for a really for a while, this sort of narrative that is interspersed. It's instruction that's interspersed with moments of narrative. And in this parsha, what happens is that Moses assembles all of the people of Israel. It says, Vayak'hel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Vayak'hel comes from kihila, which means community. God communifies the people. I made that up. That's not a word. God makes the community. He assembles them all and gives them some instructions about Shabbat, and then goes back to the instructions about the creation of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, for the rest of the parsha. There are, in this parsha, 122 verses of instructions and details that tell us about the dolphin skins and what color and how many cubits and all of the details, the minutia of what it means to build this sanctuary. In fact, it's not just this parsha. As you well know, we've been doing this for a while now, and we're going to do it some more next week. These instructions about building the sanctuary, there are 400 verses in total in the Torah that give instructions about building this sanctuary, the Mishkan, the tabernacle. 400 verses. The Torah is actually like not that long. So 400 verses is a lot. If you can think back to some of the fundamental pieces of our tradition, like, I don't know, creation, let me tell you what there's not: 400 verses. So why? Why do we need them? Why do we need so many details and instructions and minutia? Like, even if they got it, why is it included in the Torah? And I'll tell you, it's a big project, the building of the Mishkan. It's a really big project, what they're doing. And it might feel like it's bigger than one can handle. It's too big to manage. Because don't forget, they were just slaves. And then they had this traumatic exodus from Egypt, and they're wandering in the desert, and all of a sudden they have to build this thing with all of these crazy instructions. So maybe the details are there so that they know what steps to take, so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming, which is a word that I feel like we've used a lot. Things feel overwhelming. I feel overwhelmed again this week as I sat today imagining what we were going to talk about. My family comes from a shtetl, a small town called Shepatovka in Ukraine. My great-grandfather, Israel Chasen, left my great-grandmother, Rebecca, in the shtetl in July of 1913 when there were pogroms and attacks happening everywhere. And he went to America to find them a new life, to make them a new life. And what he didn't know when he left in 1913 is that in 1914, World War I would start. And so it was not until 7 years after he left that my great-grandfather could send for my great-grandma and their young daughter to join him in America. And my grandma Dolly, who was a great historian and took very, very much pride in writing all of this down and making sure that we inherited the story of our family, she writes the stories that her mother would tell. She wrote them down, the stories that her mother would tell of the Cossacks that would raid their town and how they would hide in the cellar. How Rebecca and her young daughter and her sisters would hide in the cellars, afraid that the Cossacks would find them and that they would be killed or worse. And so that's a part of my history and my story that is actually a really prominent part of the narrative of my family that we talked about a lot and that my grandmother handed down to us. And I had the opportunity when I was in rabbinical school. We spent our first year in Israel, and HUC, our seminary in Israel, does this very cool thing where it sends a whole bunch of liberal first-year rabbinical students to the former Soviet Union to lead seders. Because what happens in places like Russia and Ukraine and Moldova and Belarus is that there's a whole lot of Orthodox Judaism, appropriately and understandably, and there may or may not be a whole lot of liberal Judaism, and so they send all of us brand newbies to crazy cities in Ukraine and Russia and Belarus and Moldova so that we can lead seders for people who want to be a part of liberal communities. And it's very cool. It was an incredible experience. I got to go to two places, one called Lutsk and one called Lviv. And you may have heard of Lviv recently. And while I was on this trip, we had a tour guide who was with us the entire time, like the entire duration of Passover, that I was in these cities leading seders and meeting people. Her name was Natasha. And I'll tell you, it was cool for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that this was so special is because if you look at the map of Ukraine, Lviv and Lutsk are about, a couple of hours apart from each other, and sort of right in a triangle is Shepatovka, which is where I'm from. Same region, like western-ish Ukraine. And I didn't realize how impactful that moment would be until at a Seder, I had chicken soup. And it was exactly the same as my grandma's chicken soup. Everything else was different. I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian. There were all kinds of things, including like horseradish infused vodka, which was a wild addition to my Passover experience. However, the chicken soup, exactly the same. because those are my ancestors. Those are my people. It's where I came from. They're 2 hours away from a place that no longer has a Jewish community, but where my family lived. And now our attention is turned back to that region, to Ukraine, to Russia. And so in case you are lucky enough to not be following along in the news, here's what's happening. Since yesterday, Russian forces launched a wide-ranging assault on Ukraine following an order from the Russian President Vladimir Putin for a special military operation. He is calling for the demilitarization of what he egregiously claims is a neo-Nazi Ukrainian government. The president of Ukraine is a Jew. Something like 150 Ukrainians have died since this started. 1,700 protesting Russians in Russia have been arrested. The West is imposing sanctions all over the place. Jews are evacuating. They are on the move. Social media makes this wild because we know what's happening. We're not waiting for information to arrive here, by telegram. We're watching it happen on live video on Facebook. There are buses that are driving through the night tonight full of Orthodox Jews who observe Shabbat, who are afraid to stop, who would never get on a bus on Shabbat, who are afraid to stop hauling for the border to Moldova, hoping that they're going to get there. Citing, just like we have in the last 2 years, that there are some things that just don't matter when it comes to pikuach nefesh, the saving of a life. The bus is irrelevant. They do anything. And they're not convinced that if they don't leave, that they'll make it. There are 100,000 internally displaced Ukrainians. Many of the internally displaced are from cities which have been hit by Russian armaments over the past 24 hours, and they're leaving for places that are less likely to draw fire because they live in crumbling Soviet-era apartment buildings, which are wildly unsafe in the middle of a bombing. And at about 4 p.m. Denver time today, Russia vetoed the US-backed UN Security Council resolution that condemned Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Overwhelming, indeed. So about 2 hours ago, I was forwarded an email by a colleague who got this email from people he knows. And he asked me not to share any more than that, but he wanted me to see it in case I wanted to talk about it, because he knew I was talking tonight about the situation. Because it's not safe for any more of the details of this person's identity to be shared, because this is coming from a non-Jewish Russian who works in a global corporation. And he sent this email to all of the people in the company, and this is how it ended up with me, and here's what it said. I am overwhelmed with bewilderment and guilt and remorse. I feel responsibility as a citizen of Russia. I feel that every Russian citizen should as well. It's our government, it's our army, and we can't just distance ourselves from it. And yet, he says, I feel powerless to stop what's going on. He writes, unfortunately, Putin's Russia today is not a country of freedom where everyone can express their feelings or even elect their government. We do not have free and fair elections, and even the act of protesting is dangerous. Police beat and arrest and sentence people to prison for only speaking out against the government. He says a year ago, he joined such a protest. And he writes, after my wife registered with one of the opposition groups, the police came to our home and they threatened us. The courts are corrupt. Fair trials don't exist. Young people are imprisoned for posting dissident messages on social media. He said, I wish the streets were full of massive anti-war protests right now. Some brave people, including friends of mine, actually gathered on the streets yesterday to protest, but that was quickly suppressed by police. 1,700 people were arrested. Some were sent to prison. And he wrote this to his full company. When you see me working on my company's business and not rising up against my government, I ask you not to see it as a lack of support for my friends and my colleagues and their country. Shame, anger, and powerlessness are the three words I've heard the most within my circles in social media, from friends, from family, yesterday and today. It is 3:11 a.m. in Ukraine. And when I talked to my friend Natasha this morning, she was getting ready to go to bed, bundled in 1,000 layers with her son to sleep in a shelter. And so, in the middle of the night right now, these Jews, these people and Jews are freezing in these underground shelters. They are violating Shabbat as they ride on these buses or trains. They are sleeping in bathtubs, in basements, under mattresses, in crumbling Cold War era buildings to try to stay safe. And here we are, somewhere approaching 400 verses on the details of the construction of the tabernacle. And next week, when we read Torah, it's going to be done. We're going to finish building it. And then God's going to come and live in it. That's the point of this sanctuary, that God should dwell among the people. That's the project that they've been working on for the last 400 verses. It's a huge, unbelievable, unimaginable, overwhelming, finished project. And that's why we need all 400 verses to know how it is that we manage to make it to the end, to the goal. We need the details, the steps, every single step. Because that's us now, too. Sitting here at the beginning of the war, and it is one, at the start of a project that feels overwhelming and insurmountable. We've got all 400 verses to go, and we're watching, and we're worrying, and we're waiting, and we are overwhelmed. And it turns out, as Cantor said to me earlier today, we're not, us in this room, geopolitical power players. We're just individuals. We're people that are thousands of miles away. We can't change the fact that a war just started. We can't stop it. So what do? One verse at a time, one step at a time. Here are a couple of things that we can do today as we're at the beginning of the journey. The first thing is donate. With the safety of the 200,000 Jews that are living in Ukraine right now at risk, our federation, Jewish Colorado, has established an emergency fund in support of the work of the global partners that federations work with, the Jewish Federations of North America, the Jewish Agency for Israel, and the Joint Distribution Committee, which is on the ground in Ukraine and all of those Eastern European countries, and World Ort. They're all coordinating efforts to respond. 100% of proceeds, as always, go directly to supporting the people that are on the ground living there. And Jewish Colorado wrote in their email to us today, whenever and wherever one Jew is threatened, we are all threatened. We remain vigilant in these troubling times, and on behalf of our cousins, our brothers, and our sisters in the region, we extend our gratitude for the generosity and the compassion of people who might be far away, who might feel untouched, but who might also know in their kishkas, in their souls, in their guts, in the stories of their families, whether or not those are Jewish stories. We all have stories of having to change, of having to leave, of having to adapt. And so we have to remember and help. So we can donate. We send our messages of support across the ocean, and we check on the people that we know. So many of us might have friends and family that are living a little bit closer. And we reach out to those friends and neighbors who are missing their families, who are in danger right now. We take care of those who are recent immigrants among us. There's a story that Rabbi Jeff Salkin sent out today about something that happened actually near Lviv in Ukraine during the Holocaust. And the story goes that the Nazis were doing all kinds of horrible things. And one of those things is that they were asking the Jews in the camps to dig pits, giant holes. And they forced them to leap across the holes and the pits. And those who made it, and those who didn't. 2 men stood at the edge of the pit. One was an elderly rabbi who was very pious and righteous and observant. One was his friend who was, in fact, a Jew, but was an atheist, we'll say. And even though neither man was in great physical shape, they both jumped. And as the story goes, they both made it to the other side. And they looked at each other when they made it across the pit. And the atheist asked the rabbi, how did you do it? And the rabbi said, I was holding on to all those who came before me, to all the merit of my ancestors who got me to where I am today. I was holding on to the coattails of my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents of blessed memory. And you, my friend, the rabbi asked, how did you make it? And his friend answered, I was holding on to you. And so we hold on to each other. That's how we make it. One step, one leap at a time. This is a big project and a big pit to survive this, to take care of our people, to take care of the world, to do what we can to make, one person a little bit safer. One step at a time. That's how we build this world of peace, this shelter of peace. And so we're going to close with words of psalms, of prayer. And the words are, Yehi shalom bechelech v'shalva be'armenotayich. And it means, may there be peace within your walls. May there be shalva, tranquility, quiet in your fortresses. Shalom and shalva are not the same. Shalom is peace with a capital P. Shalva is just a moment of quiet. We may not be able to make peace with a capital P, but we can work to make ourselves, to make the world, to make each other feel a little bit more safe, a little quiet tonight. And so as we get ready to say these words of prayer, may we send that quiet, that peace to the shelters and to the buses and to the bathtubs, to the old crumbling buildings. And may we build peace and quiet inside each of us and each of those for whom we are worrying tonight. We remind them that they're not alone and we won't leave them to fight on their own. When they leap, they can hold on to us. And in the meantime, may each and every detail, each and every step we take help to make peace in places all over the world.
Yehi shalom bechelech shalva be'armenotayich. Yehi shalom bechelech shalva Yehi shalom bechelech shalva be'armenotayich. Yehi shalom bechelech shalva be'armenotayich. Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me, for love is what is what we need.
We rise as we are able for the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לעצב ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
You may be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And so we call into our minds all those that we are remembering today, those that we have lost this week, Mina Kay and William Bill Osterberg, those that we have lost in the last month, Larry Ambrose, Rosalind Ann Agosto, Linda Forrest, Donald Lubbock, Joan Fla Sussman, Sam Dave Madier, and Irene Freund. And those that we have lost in years past at this time. This is the Yortzeit, or the anniversary of their passing, and so we remember them on this Shabbat. Morris I. Alpert, Barbara E. Baum, Dana Cheryl Beitcher, Eugenia Beresovsky, Jerome I. Berkowitz, Hattie D. Borwick, Esther A. Castle, Albert Cohen, Dorothy H. Cohn, Bertha Epstein, Irvin A. Erdman, Saul Felsen, Henry L. Fishman, Shirley Franklin, Cyril Franks, Meyer J. Friedman, Molly Gass, Helen Glosser, John J. Gotchman, Bessie Goldstein, Aaron Greenberg, David Grimes, Jean Ann Grubbs, Edith S. Hillman, Betty Inberg, Mathilde Jacobs, Eli Katz, Harris Kobe, James D. Lackner, Sarah Laskowitz, Edward L. Lazar, Gertrude Levy, Erwin H. Levy, Julia L. Lewin, Jack H. Lopata, Harlan Lubin, Dorothy Oppenheim Markman, Irving Munnessy, Meta Mayer, Lillian H. Mayman, Forrest G. Meyer, Harry Morris, May B. Mushkin, Harry Newstetter, Chaya Judith Nimsevitz Noe, Eleanor Pepper, Max Rifkin, Irving Ringler, Joan Rittenbaum, Edith Rosenbaum, Arthur Samuelson, May Arno Schwat, Naomi Sheftel, Nancy Simmons, Rita Stone, Arthur Tepper, David Weiner, Esther S. Winter. And we add 10 more, 10 from the city of Colleen, for a community that was destroyed during the Holocaust, for whom our Finer Chapel is dedicated and who feel just a little closer this Shabbat. Berta Brunarova, Alois Budlovsky, Ivan Dekmar, Atali Dekmarova, Anna Diamant, Yosef Diamant, Karel Diamant, Hugo Eckstein, Yuri Eckstein, and Julius Eckstein. If there are others for whom you are saying Kaddish on this Shabbat, I invite you to say their names out loud. We hold them in our hearts. If you are at home, type it in, say it out loud, whisper it, hold it in your heart. And if you are in the first 30 days after the loss of a loved one, we invite you to rise as you are able so that we can send you our love. And if you're in the first year of mourning after the loss of a loved one, I invite you to rise as you can. And if this Shabbat marks the Yortzeit or the anniversary of the passing of a loved one, please rise as you are able. And now we all rise as we can, and we recite the ancient words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkarash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, amen.
And let us say, and let us say, amen. And let us say, and let us say, amen. And let us say, and let us say, amen. And let us say, and let us say, amen. So we're going to remain standing for just one quick moment before we move into Kiddush and Motzi and the conclusion of our service to make brief announcements. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, there will be Torah study on Zoom and streamed to our platforms on Facebook and our website with Steve Brodsky, followed by the community service in our finer chapel at 11 o'clock with Rabbi Hyatt and Steve Brodsky. Please do join us there. And perhaps incongruously tonight, but important to know nevertheless, Purim is coming. And even when we feel like this, it is important to laugh. Our tradition teaches us that that is true, and to have levity and frivolity and fun. Purim will be on Sunday, March 13th, for our religious school families and population that would like to come and see our Disney Frozen Purim Spiel. If you have ever wanted to know what it sounds like to take all the music of Disney's Frozen and put all the lyrics to the Purim story on top of it, this is your moment. If you have ever wanted to see hundreds of children wearing Elsa dresses, this is your moment. It is going to be spectacular, and this year we will actually be featuring our teens as the stars in our Purim play. And aside from all the funniness, I have to tell you that there are some spectacular voices in our community. And so if you want to come hear some of our young singers who just blow you out of the water, this will be a really amazing moment to do that. On Wednesday, March 16th, we will be celebrating Purim as an adult community with an evening of mixology and some learning with the clergy who are going to be exploring different avenues of the Megillah. I think that's quite enough for right now. And with that, we're going to transition to Kiddush. Neil, you ready for grape juice? Let's do it. Here we go. We sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei bria gafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. Amen. Let's clink. Ready? Good job.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, and we are going to say our blessing over our challah without setting it on fire. Here we go. It's good. I know, right? Yeah. Woo! Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. We conclude our service this evening with a song about building our Mishkan with intentionality and love and community and support, about building our world with intentionality and love and community and support. If we do it, so too will everyone else do it, and so too will God do it with us. Yeah. Olam chesed yibaneh, yalalai, lai, lai, yalalai, lai. Olam chesed yibaneh.
May it be your will, God, that the work of building this world from love, when it feels overwhelming and when it feels like we can't do it, that we stop and take a breath and think about just the next step, just the next thing that we can do to put a little bit more love in the world. And if we maybe just take one step at a time, then we'll make it somewhere. And so we ask your blessing, God. Tatzidenu l'shalom. Help those steps be steps of peace. Tadrichenu l'shalom. May our paths that we walk be paths of peace, as we say together. Amen.